Hi there, I'm Brittany Faith, and welcome back to the Beyond Faith podcast. Today we're going to be talking about something really special, a little hard, something that we don't like to admit, and that is when we allow the spirit of competition and jealousy enter our hearts, and it stops us from doing what God wants us to do. I have with me Sthephany. She's here
everyone.
To help me speak about this topic because this is something that is very close to our hearts, something that we've overcome, that we go through, and that we've had to fight since we were like 14 years old. Yeah. And so today we're going to share a little bit of our story in hopes that if someone out there can learn from what we did wrong, what we did right, that God can use you and the people in your life to be a blessing to your community. So I have Sthephany here with me. Steph and I met, what year was it?
2013 maybe?
Yeah, I think I was about 15 going on 16. No, just turned 15 and we started planning my Sweet 16.
Yes.
Yes, and we met one day where you came. I don't know if you want to share a little bit about that.
It was, obviously a very long journey. It was a random, there was something going on at church. Mm-hmm. I think it was
the church's birthday?
No, the renovation of the couples.
Yes.
They were doing their renovation of their wedding vows, and one of my mom's friends was participating in it. She's like, "Oh, come to our church." And I was like, "Okay." And Brittany's like sitting in the back, and I wasn't sure how old she was. I wasn't sure if she was 8 or if she was 14.
I've always had that vibe.
Yes, she was surrounded by kids, and I was like, I'm like, are all those kids hers, or is she one of them? So, yeah, I think that was, like, our first encounter.
Our first seeing each other.
Was our first, and we did, we acknowledged each other right away. And then I ended up coming to church more and more, and that's how we officially,
started becoming. I remember we were having a dance. The dance ministry had just started.
Yes.
And we had a very wonderful lady. She was our leader, but she did not know how to dance. Sorry. Eu também sou menina, mas you know you don't know how to dance.
It's not because of that.
But we do love you, but we know you don't know how to dance. And she knew Sthephany, and they were family friends. And Sthephany, you were doing dance lessons, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, at that point, I had been intensely taking dance classes. I did ballet, jazz, for a little. I had been doing lessons for a little while, and we had taken that out and gone to our old church and had been doing dance ministry in our old church, me along with another girl. And yeah.
And then my dad, my dad's the pastor, for those that don't know. He invited, through Gina, oh, hey Gina, he invited
I know, I was like, am I going to say her name? So I was like,
Gina. He invited Sthephany to come and choreograph a dance for the church's anniversary dinner. I believe it was the anniversary.
Yes, it was.
Right?
Yes, it was. And one thing I'll say is that, by the way, that brought me back to Jesus, by the way. A quick little,
sprinkle.
That actually brought me back to Jesus. I had backslid, and me coming back to Geração, which I didn't know at the time, and your dad pulled me into the office and had a conversation with me and asked me to help, and he was like, I see you. Guys, gonna use that brought me back. I was backslid, really, but yeah, just a little spice. A
little bit of your story.
That's but yeah, so
no, but it was really cool because I remember I didn't know how old you were. I didn't.
Were you also confused?
I was like, she's either a lot older because you carried yourself with a lot of maturity, but you had a very young face, so it was hard to tell. I was like, she's either 22.
Or she's
my age.
Or she's 10.
I'm or we're the same age. So it was hard to tell at first. And you had this very you just carried yourself very maturely. And you were able to control a room of 10 adolescent girls, even though you were only a year older.
Yeah, I was 16.
You were literally a year older. But everyone respected you a lot. And it was just so interesting to see that dynamic. And I gravitated to Sthephany right away.
Instantly.
We literally, within the first 2 months of knowing each other, had shared all of our deepest secrets to one another.
It was a lot.
Well,
here's my life. Here's everything.
And we just got along right off the bat.
Yes, we really
right
did.
Off the bat. I just loved the way you carried yourself, and I admired how you just had these natural leadership tendencies. It was the first thing that I remember. I was like, oh, she really commanded a room, and I was so starstruck by that. Because at that age, I was 15, so I didn't really know how to not be awkward. You know, I was just going through my awkward
like,
phase, just like with my like hair long in my face.
Gosh. Not the different color seasons.
The different colored seasons.
Different color seasons. Brittany, if we can put pictures, I don't know, somewhere, if we can pop them in here. This is my recommendation. Hopefully it could be like right here. Brittany went through a lot of different color hair
phases.
This is a recommendation for me for her podcast right now. Put the pictures here, please.
All of my embarrassing moments.
With the photo, the captions on the photo.
Oh no! It was so bad.
I'm going to go home tonight and I'm going to look for them
and I'm going to. They're all on my Facebook. I did not delete any of them.
But you know what?
It was the time.
We've all been there. But I was doing it too. But it was
the time.
It was just interesting because
the popped out glasses.
Like, so it would be like glasses with no lenses. And it was so cool.
We thought
super cool.
We were the it girls.
We thought we were
legitimately.
Yes.
And so like instantly I was so drawn to you. And I remember like we got along really well for like the first 4 months.
But for the same reason, because you got along with everybody and I liked that in you because like through that time I was very serious. And so they always tell you surround yourself with people that you would like to be like. Yeah. So I was like, I feel like, again, God changed me a lot, girl. Allah, Jesus Cristo mudou meu viver. No copyright, please. But literally, and so at that time, I was like, wow, I want to be more outgoing. So I think that also drew me to you because you were very outgoing. You were just friends with everybody, and you're just like a social butterfly. So I was like, I'm gonna be like that. So again, for many reasons, I think we were just drawn,
gravitating.
Like our personalities were a lot alike, so we were very drawn to each other.
And it's funny, we liked things that we thought we were lacking.
Yes,
and that's what we gravitated towards each other.
I mean, now that we're grown up, it makes sense. But when we were younger, which we'll get into, it didn't.
It wasn't always
the best. Click. It wasn't like seeing this now. You're like, oh.
It was rough.
It was hard.
Like the first 4 months of our friendship was awesome. Like I remember, like instantly we're bonding. We're telling secrets. We're like dreaming about the future, wedding, like all of these things. Yes. Boys we had crushes on.
We were planning your Sweet 16. Yeah. It was like a big deal.
Her family really is like a big reason why my Sweet 16 even happened at the time because I knew I wanted one, but I didn't know how to plan one. And my dad was like, si vida. And I was like,
do it by yourself.
I'm 15 years old.
Be fine.
And then your mom really stepped in and like you stepped in. She helped choreograph the dance for my court, everything. So like, I felt like that was such a good moment. And we had like, it was like such a great time.
Such a great time. We really did.
We did. And we were together like literally all the time.
All the time.
Laughing, talking, everything.
And we loved that. And we always made any reason for all of us to be together. Everything was a reason for us to be together. Even our siblings, all the time, were together because all of us were just so drawn
we just
to
clicked.
each other. We just all clicked. We were very alike.
And then we entered
I think it was
a hard period.
I think it was after we became self-aware of our teenage years.
Yeah.
I feel like that took a really big impact
It was interesting. It was interesting to say the least. It's when a lot of things, I think I can only speak for myself in this area. I think I had a lot of insecurities.
Same.
And what I admired ended up being things that made me feel insecure. And it didn't help that there were so many factors outside of us that took a lot of play in it.
Yeah.
Girl, it got real messy real quick. Really quick.
I do agree with you. I think that a lot of things that we loved about each other were things that we started to be like, oh, well, she can do that, so...
Now I'm less.
Now I'm not good enough.
Because like in comparison.
Because we were always together.
Yeah.
It made it where it's like, okay, but not both of us can't be. We can't be on the same.
We can't both be good at this thing. We can't be
both. Yeah. Someone needs to not be good at it.
Yeah.
So.
And now I look back and I'm like, that's where the holy competition.
Yes. So
really started.
I love in the movies when they mention the title of the movie. So this is the title of the podcast. It's Holy Competitions.
And now I'm going to open the floor to you, Steph. What was your perspective? How did it affect you? You know?
I think, like, based on our conversation we had before we decided, it affected me a lot. I think that, again, in the beginning, like you said, from us just being so close together and then having all these insecurities come into play, I think that when I started to become more self-aware in the ministry, it's not even being self-aware as, like, a teenager, but when we both started to work in ministry, because before I was like, oh, like, we're doing this, like, oh, you're dancing, but when we started to work in the same ministry, it wasn't like, oh, Brittany's like in the children's ministry and Stephanie's in the dance ministry. It came to a time,
everything the same.
I think that the time that we were both like, oh, we're gonna both be working together in worship. I think that's when it started to be like, oh, okay, like evidence. Things are not. I think it was obvious to everybody around us, and people pretended like it wasn't there.
Yeah.
But I think it affected me a lot because, again, until I got over everything and was able to heal, I was insecure about worship as a ministry. Because even though I knew that God had a calling for both of them, which I'm very sure of until today, I know very bright, very clearly that God has called us both into worship. But at the time, I felt so insecure about it because of, like you said, the holy competition that was there. And so for so many reasons and so many years, I pushed away ministry, especially after we had our biggest falling out. I pushed away ministry because I felt like I wasn't worthy enough of ministry. And it's not that I wasn't worthy enough. It's just that I thought I was the only one that was able to do that ministry.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case. So I feel like in so many ways over the years, that actually hindered my process and hindered my growth. And maybe I was hindering something that God had planned for my life, but I didn't know because I was so caught up. Again, it was never about me. I don't know when God...
That's
God
the
was
hardest
like,
thing to accept.
God was like, girl, it was never about you. When did you make this about you?
At
the process
point?
was about you, but the story's never about you.
It was to bring glory back to Him.
It's to bring glory to Him. So I feel like going through everything made me who I am today. But I pray that no one goes through what we went through. Yeah. Because it took so many years away from our growth. Like we talked about it. We don't know what could have happened if we hadn't walked the path that we did. We know what did happen because a lot of great came out of it. But what if there was something more?
That we stepped out
and we interrupted. We broke God's that bridge.
Plan.
We broke the bridge.
And it was broken for a long time. Like, it's like we said, one of the greatest things that I admired ended up being the things that would reflect in me that I was insecure about.
Yes.
And I think that because we were both talented, headstrong, and we're not trying to sound cocky. I'm not trying to blow like we're like the best things to ever be put on this planet. But like we had a lot of the same talents and heart. Yeah. And so I think like because of that, people couldn't help but compare us. Yes. And internally, we ended up comparing ourselves too. Like, oh, they complimented her. Why didn't they compliment me?
Yeah.
I also sang. What was this?
What do you mean I didn't? But I think it's also like you said something, and when we had a conversation that really resonated with me, and it was all the stars in the sky, they all shine at the same time. Yep. Not one shines brighter than the other, but if one is to shine brighter, it's because it's their turn to shine. It doesn't dim your shine. It's just their turn to shine. Yep. And that really I always think about that. I'm like, the sun shines in the morning. And when the sun goes down, the moon comes up and brings light in the darkness. So
everyone has their turn.
Sometimes you can't always be the sun. Sometimes you have to be the moon. You just got to wait your turn. And so I think that what it was for a lot was because we were working together very closely in ministry. And again, God has called us to work together in ministry. And it took us a lifetime and a half to understand that and understand God's purpose.
You know what? At least we noticed it now.
We noticed it. How old are we? We don't share our age because we're at that point now. But I think that it was always God's purpose to have us work together and to build each other up. But I don't think it was His purpose for us to have
that much
that war.
That much conflict that was going on. Like you really showed like such strength in that moment too. Because if we hadn't gotten to this point now, we could have easily hated each other. Forever. Like easily. We could have been those girls that see each other in the supermarket. Hi. How are you? How's your life? How's the kids? How's your mom? How's your walks dad? Away and it's like
everything is good. Oh
my God, you have not. So and then your kids, they're listening to that.
And I'm like, Mom, what's your problem?
Yeah, like I remember I had a point where I was like praying and I was asking God, why isn't anything moving in my life? Like I don't understand.
My whole life.
I don't understand. I'm going to church. I'm reading my Bible. I'm studying. But it feels like things aren't falling into place. And I was so frustrated.
Like nothing's happening.
Nothing's moving. And I'm like, I'm frustrated. Like I'm watching all my friends like get married and start their careers. And I feel stuck. And then I felt God say that there is a lot of misaligned pieces in my heart. And one of them was dealing with unforgiveness towards you.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, I thought we dealt with this, God. And God's like, nah, it's still down there.
Something that I will say, PJ, I know you'll watch this. I'm still mad at the time I was still very mad at you for this. But like now, I totally understand. I remember me and your dad had like a very brief conversation, and he was like, and he told me to my face, you know, sometimes it's like when there's confrontation, you don't want to hear it.
Yeah, you don't. You want to pretend it doesn't exist.
I'm not a confrontation girly. I'm just like,
I'm not either.
I love everybody. I just want to make everybody happy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to learn with that as I grow. But I remember I had a conversation with your dad, and he was like, you have so much potential to grow, but you cannot, because you have to heal relationships.
Girl, he told me the same thing.
But he told me this when I was like younger, and it broke me. It tore me because I felt like he was telling me like, you're a horrible, like in my head it sounds like
you're a bad friend.
This was the translation in my head. You suck. You're a horrible person.
Yes.
You'll never be a leader. You're done.
Literally.
So that's
I felt the same
That's how it translated
way.
to me. And I left the office so angry and so upset. Like, I can't believe he said that to me. Like, I'm working so hard. I'm dedicating all my time to ministry. I can't believe he said, like, I was so mad at him. And again, we were still in GE in Newark.
Yeah.
And I was so upset with that. But like, sometimes I think back, I'm like, I know what he was talking about. Like, he meant like the relationships that I had to heal with people that were right next to me.
Yeah.
At the time, my biggest one was with you, but I did have little
other things.
Yeah,
of course.
But with the same kind of feeling where I resented the other person because I felt like it was just a competition. And we talked about this a lot, but I think that I got to a point where people around us started noticing and nobody did anything.
They didn't do anything. That was the hardest point, because it felt like on my end, like I was screaming for help. I'm like, I need help in this.
It was a cry at this point.
Yeah, like I need help.
Nobody saw us.
Because I
never felt so unseen.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was so crazy. Because at the same time that I was feeling insecure, I really admired you and I liked you at the same time. So it was constant.
We were like fire and fire. And
because we wanted to be near each other. We wanted to work together.
Poles, like a negative and a negative instead of a positive.
But then as soon as we would work together, those feelings would creep up. And it was hard because really then hurt would set in. And it was just so difficult. And now we said it. I wish someone would have mediated the situation. Yes, I think sat us down, called us out.
I think it would have really changed this. It would have changed everything, because again, a lot of people saw it, and sometimes the more people noticed that, I feel like the more that it happened.
Yeah, I felt like they played into it sometimes.
Instead of it dying down, and it was like, oh, Sthephany and Brittany. Oh, okay. I asked Brittany to do this, but I didn't ask you because. And I'm like, okay, but why did you? Like, you don't have to come.
You don't have to tell me all of this. Yeah.
In our youth, I feel like that really destroyed us, because we talked about like discipleship and how we really didn't have a lot of discipling done when we were growing up. So
yeah, and it wasn't even a lack of wanting. I think there was just a lack of not having experience.
There wasn't someone like it wasn't that person for us. Yeah, and which I think is one of the biggest points we talked about. Like, you know, if there's any leader out there that sees this or that identifies, because this is, especially in today's day and age, with social media being more frequently on it, the comparison game plays a big role. Big. It's big.
And it's hard to hide.
Big.
You can't hide it.
You can't. And so, like, if you see this, please mediate it. Please sit down. Please make sure. And if you're going through this, I would even say, please be sure to talk to somebody you could trust, because I think that we've had situations where we thought we could trust X, Y, and Z. We went to the incorrect person for advice, and it actually just put more fire. It
just like fueled it more.
Yeah, it fuels
instead of getting like, more. Hey, maybe you should just talk to that person, or hey, maybe forgive.
Yes.
Don't take it so personal. Maybe it's not personal. Maybe it's not even about you. Maybe the person's just having a bad day.
Maybe it's just
it's just the person had a bad day, and you happen to be the line of fire.
Right. You were caught. You were
just caught in the crossfire, and like, if we had just taken the opportunity to really think and to give each other grace, I think we would have been a lot happier and a lot healthier. And I feel like the one thing that we have tried to have a conversation like this multiple times. Like, I think the first one was when we were like 17.
I was just thinking about that. I'm like, I feel like
we tried, but we just didn't know how to resolve
have a conversation.
Like, we would be like, hey, this, and this, and this. Well, this, and this. Well, okay, I forgive you too. And then 2 months down the line, it would happen again. And then we would sit down, well, this, and it was like a cycle over and over.
Yes.
But it's because, like, I remember one time we were praying, and our leader at the time, I don't know if you remember this, she was like praying over us, and she said that like we were basically aligned.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like that's
Yeah, that our ministries were aligned.
Yeah.
And that until we finally understood that,
we would not go.
We would not go anywhere.
Nowhere fast.
Girl, that like stuck with me. Like it stuck with me for a long time because I was like, it's true. Like our ministries are aligned. That's why we're so good at the same things.
Yes.
And it's like you said, what did God want to do in these years that the devil tried to work so hard to destroy?
Exactly.
And constantly tries to destroy. I don't even know what he's so scared of, but I want to find out.
I'm trying to
find out what he's scared of.
And,
you know?
And even, like, again, I guess maybe someone can relate to this. And even we're talking about the fact that we were working so hard and trying to seek God and doing, like, read all the Bible, did all the Bible studies, we're in church all the time just trying to seek out God. Meanwhile, this was going on. And I remember we had a conversation, too, that I was like, there was no way that God was using us during this time because we were feuding. And God doesn't work in chaos. Mm-hmm. So
that's not godly.
So we thought God was using us, but in reality, there's absolutely no way that
He was working in us.
He could do whatever he wants, but he's very clear that he's not a God of chaos.
Yeah, I think he was definitely working in us, and through his grace, it touched other people.
Absolutely.
From example, you know, but I do think that we weren't fully aligned to what God wanted.
Yes, I felt like a lot of, like, thinking back, I'm like, I remember had a repentance prayer. I was like, God, I'm so sorry for my empty worship.
Yeah.
Because coming from, it's different for you to pray and worship through your hurt, but it's different when you have issues with somebody in ministry.
Where you're literally standing right next to them.
When you're on the altar, it's very clear that you need to settle your differences before you go up on the altar and do X, Y, and Z. And
you're singing with a heart full of bitterness.
Yeah, and how does God accept your worship when you're
not even worshiping?
It's not even like, how great am I? Let's sing how great
it's
I
like, I'm
am.
better than
so,
you.
Like,
I'm better.
Even
I'm
though
better.
You're trying to worship. You're so focused on the person that is next to you worshiping that your worship doesn't come out fully to God.
Yeah.
And I feel like, again, even in today's day and age where, you know, like, we all have eyes. I'm sure you guys that are watching probably have seen it. Or maybe you feel it. Maybe you feel that within you stirring where you have a sense of jealousy or because you feel like you can't compare to the person that is in ministry with you. That's not what God wants.
Not at all. Because we said the star analogy. There's enough room for every star in the sky. And God knows every star by name. Yes. And he chose them and he placed them.
Yes.
And if God's putting you there, it's for a reason. And there's enough room for everyone to work in ministry without it hindering the other person.
Absolutely.
Without it hindering.
I'm sorry. I already
so
hit your
sorry.
Point
I keep smacking it without it hindering. And I remember, what do you call it? There was a moment where, for me, everything shifted. Where I felt like I truly got over it. Yeah, there was like a shift in me where I realized like, oh, I'm fighting against the wrong ideals.
Yes.
I'm using flesh and blood instead of fighting against the spiritual world where the enemy is trying to separate us, where he's trying to cause disunity, where he's trying to bring chaos and destruction, because it was for both of our lives. It was to hinder us. It was to stop us, to silence us. And who knows, maybe you were holding a part of my healing and I was holding a part of your healing. And we couldn't achieve it until we released that forgiveness.
Exactly. And I think that God, I think just like he has for everybody, God has major plans for all of us. And we're very well aware of that ever since before we were thoughts and before we were even conceived. God was always preparing something for us. And again, God had something, no matter what, he has something prepared for you and has something prepared for me.
Yeah.
Even though, again, not exactly like, but always aligned. And
into his purpose.
Again, us all these years trying to figure out, like, being confused and trying to find ourselves and not being able to was clearly the lack of forgiveness.
100%.
And because
I believe
we
that.
couldn't,
No.
I don't understand. I'm still confused as to why I felt like I couldn't release that forgiveness. Yeah. And I remember, same thing, I had like a moment of realization, and same thing, was just so frustrated in ministry and just didn't want to be there at all. And because, like you said, like, things were moving. Like, I was like, God, I see what you're doing for other people.
What does it mean?
What are you, like, I see you moving these mountains. Literally. I see you doing the impossible for everyone.
And it feels like you forgot
Where
me.
is my impossible?
Yeah.
I was like, why? Like, so forgotten, so unseen, so unheard. Not by God, but the people.
Yeah.
And it was so hard because working so hard and nothing happening, and seeking out and just silence, like, period of just dryness,
just
like
the desert.
Just, and it's not even like I was walking through it. I was just sitting there.
Yeah,
it was brutal.
Because it gets to a point where you get tired of fighting.
Yeah,
and you just
you're swinging at the wind. You're swinging at the wind. Who are you fighting against?
Yeah, it really is. Why? Why are you fighting so hard?
Why are you fighting?
And
I don't.
When I brought this concept to you, I remember you went, "Oh man,
no!
Like, we're gonna talk about this."
Yeah, it was again. It's. I don't even think we got to the nitty gritty of it yet. This is just like the surface. This is the surface, but it was hard. But yeah, I think it was very hard to understand God's doing at the time, and trying to understand why at the time, like you said, it felt like it was all about me, and it was never about me. It was always about him. Maybe it was always about us, and never about nor you nor me.
Yeah,
it was about something that God was trying to pin together, and I could just never understand why at the time, like why I was struggling, why I wasn't seeing, why God wasn't. And I was like, like, I already went through my testimony. I had already gone through my struggle, and I thought I was finally like seeing a new season. And it really frustrated me because it reminded me of when I had backslid, and I was like, I don't get it. Like, why did you put me through the test, and then here's my testimony? What's happening? Everything was so good. Everything was so fine. Everything was great. Everything was like, we had finally like started the youth back up. We finally had like a solid like ground, and everything was so new. Everything was so excited. We were starting to like, people finally trusted us to do something. It was
saw us as adults.
We finally got like trust, like, like, here, you guys are gonna do this, like, tanaswama, like, here, it's in your hands.
Yeah.
And I feel badly because for our generation, because I feel like I just did this for, again, God does what he's got to do. He don't care about, he doesn't need me, he doesn't need anybody. But at one point, I feel like he put something in our hand. I still feel so guilty for that. And we just kind of did, well, it's about me. And there was so much that had to be happening here.
Yeah.
But I was just so focused here that I couldn't see everybody else around me. And I feel like that's where it connects. Like, that's where the hurt goes on, where I felt so blinded. All these, sorry, Planty. how long, this was, how many, let's put it into a time frame.
Yeah.
How long ago was this? Putting it into
right before, a year and a half before COVID, right? 2019, 2018?
We were in Newark.
I think so, 2018.
Chosen Generation Newark.
Yeah.
So this had been happening since, like, that's when it really, like, took off. And we now have complete, like, I can say, like, honestly, the year 2022 is a year that I think I was like, I'm completely, like, this doesn't affect me, and I feel so much joy.
I really feel like it was, like, honestly, the new year. I was like, I do not want to go into 2023 with the old habits that I've walked into 2022 with. I am now a grown woman, and to be carrying so much pain from my adolescence, I wasn't that woman anymore. So why did I think that the other people were still those people?
Yes.
Like, I was not that girl. Obviously, you weren't that girl either. But we were still reacting to each other like we were still those girls. Yes. And sometimes people think, oh, that's just an adolescent thing. You're going to grow out of it. But if you don't heal from it, you're going to carry it. You're going to carry it for years. Imagine, like, we were both, like, start having kids, and then having our kids then carry on this spirit of competition.
Yes.
And that's exactly what the enemy wanted to happen.
Or to carry a grudge. And I think, too, something so silly. I think that anything would be a reason for us to also...
Anything.
It could be the air. It could be a fly on the wall. Anything like, would be a reason for us to, like...
Anything would be a reason for us to fight.
Anything and everything. Both of those. Anything and everything was a reason.
And it's like you said, stuff that was so small that could have been easily resolved with a conversation would be held on to and pile on.
Something else that anybody would, leaders, anybody that's watching this, please teach your young ones how it's okay to be confrontational. It's okay to have those hard conversations, and please offer yourself to mediate these conversations.
Yeah,
because
don't run away from
even though we could have very well sat down, we tried, but clearly nothing came out of it. But if there was somebody there that could have been like, hey guys,
a neutral party,
like just be like trying to open the doors and trying to mediate this conversation,
pray with us, fast with us, could have like, hey, let's fast together, you know.
Could have prevented like things. A 6-year kind of grudge situation.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. Like, I feel like one of the hardest parts as Christian is everyone wants to just be so nice and polite. But honestly, I believe that if there aren't hard conversations and confrontation, where there's no transformation.
There's none.
There's no change.
I agree, 100.
And I think like now, like we're both starting to step into leadership and God is starting to raise us up, you know.
Raise us up.
In these like areas where now I'm like, we can't be afraid of having those things because I don't want this cycle to repeat itself.
Yes.
I don't want to watch blindly as, oh, but that's just the girl world.
No, ma'am. That's not okay. You that are watching it
right now.
It is not okay.
No.
We are living examples that, you know, God healed us. God, he can do all the things. But that this behavior is not okay.
It's not okay. It's not godly.
It's not.
It's worldly.
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
Like, when I tell you, there was a point where it was like that scene in Mean Girls where they all were acting like wild animals. That's how it was. And honestly, that is not what God wants in women. God does not want us to be fighting against each other. He wants us to unite and to help each other, you know?
We're supposed to lift each other up here.
100%.
This is what we're called to do. I mean, in general, we're called to love one another. Mm-hmm. So what makes it different for women? Are we not humans? Were we not created by God? We're not created in His image. So what makes any of us less lovable? And what makes someone better than you if we were all created in God's perfect image? And that's something that, like, I've been also, like, you know, trying to integrate into my students. I'm like, the person sitting next to you is created perfect, just like you. God thought you were so worthy that He said, I love you so much. I'm going to create you just like me and your friend too. Just like me.
I'm going to give you a friend to help you grow.
Yes, and
it's beautiful.
And God does that for us. And again, it was so hard, but all along it's been such a blessing. And I guess it's fair to share this because I told Britt, I was like, you know, like you have an epiphany, you have a moment of realization where you're like, oh,
I've grown from this.
Everything's okay. And I told Britt, I'm like, the moment I realized that I was completely healed over was, well, first of all, I don't know if you guys know. You guys probably don't know. Britt was going to school to be a teacher. She's phenomenal. She's been working in children's ministry since she was a toddler.
Literally, since I was a kid.
Since she was born, she's been working in children's ministry. She has always done a phenomenal job. But then when she was in school, she decided to flip the script, and she realized that it was no longer God's calling over her life. Yeah. And
it felt like it was a part of it. But it was never it.
That was never it. And even though I don't think she knows this part, even though I was like, Britt, you only have a little bit left to go. In my head, I'm like, but that was always God's calling for you. Yeah. Like, you can tell that was always where God wanted to take you. Sometimes we don't want to admit it. We don't want to be like, I don't want to be the preacher. I'm not trying to be a pastor. Like, I know everybody always runs away from that title. Nobody's trying to do that. Nobody's trying to carry that responsibility. But that was always God's plan for you. You know, and I remember people were trying to give input. I always stayed in the silence because all along I knew what God had for you, even though I was always like, you know, we're always fighting.
But we knew.
It was clear what God's plan was. And the day that I sat and I was like, you know, like I told you, finally started going back to youth, and I was just sitting there and just wanted to be in God's presence and just be a part of what God was doing. And I saw you in a different, like you were on the altar, and I just saw you in a different light. And I was just looking at you and I was like, like, that's what she's supposed to do. That's her calling.
That's cry.
That's what God. No, but it's like I told you, like, and I was like, that's what God. That's the whole intention. That's it right there. The whole entire time, that's what she was supposed to be doing. Wow. Through all the struggles, like I wrote you too in the verse, all the struggles, everything that you went through, it's gonna help other people, and other people will worship because of what you went through. And thought about that Bible verse for a long time. I always meant to share it with you, and just seeing you up there, I was like, okay, wow. And I was so happy. Yeah. And I was so genuine. And I was like, you go, girl. Like, yes. Like, I'm here. I'm listening. I'm loving this. And I was like, oh, like, I don't hate that she's up there and I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm happy. I was like, I'm happy to just be here. I'm happy I'm happy where I am. I was happy in my season. And I was like, whoa, growth.
It's so nice.
I was like,
and I had a similar on the flip coin. Because, like, Steph, she met her husband very young. And for those that don't know me, I have wanted to be a wife since I was, like, 3. She
has her wedding plans since the day she was born.
I literally have, like, 3 different boards all ready to be presented to the future husband for him to pick which team he likes the best.
You just have to show up.
You literally just have to show up.
If you're listening, Brittany's husband, I know you're there. You just got to show up.
Just show up. God's going to do the rest. I promise.
We're good here.
I promise.
You just got to show up.
And so I remember, like, I always, like, legitimately knew that you and Matt were meant to be together. Like, from day one. And it's funny because, like, there was so much stuff tied with it, like, through other people, like, trying to make it seem like there was this whole craziness behind it. And I'm like, it, like, gave whiplash at certain points. But, like, there was a certain point where Matt came to me. And this was, I don't know if you even know this. He came to me and he's like, Britt, I think I have a crush on Steph. And I was like, okay.
All right. Good for you.
Okay.
All right.
And he's like, do you think you can put her as, like, my partner for your
Oh
court?
my gosh! I've heard about this way after the fact. Like,
Will you put her as my partner for your court?
I was so mad at you, by the way.
You were. I know you were. I know you were. But I was like, dang.
And this is when our friendship was still really good.
And it was really good. But then I was like, dang, he's asking me. And I know, like,
she would not be okay.
She's not going to be okay with this. But I know he's a good guy. You know what I mean? I'm like, I know he's a good guy. How am I not going to be a wing woman for him?
How am I not going to do this? What am I going to do?
So then I was like, okay, her and you together.
I've never wanted to strangle Brittany. Like, I would give her we would be doing, like,
and he's spitting.
I had to be giving her the death glare because he has 2 left feet and this kid cannot. And I'm like, I need someone that can keep up with me. I'm like, put me with Jeremy, put me with anybody. But I was like, no, it's Matt. Like, he cannot dance.
I think you specifically said that.
Right? I
think you did. But then I was like, well, because of the heights. I literally was trying
any excuse for that to work.
To happen. And ultimately it did. And, like, from that point on, I think people really wanted to, like, stir jealousy. Like, they legitimately did. And it worked. It worked. Because even though, like, I knew, like, this isn't my husband, obviously. Oh my gosh, we're now getting into, like, some drama.
I know.
Oh my God. I knew that this wasn't my husband. But then at the same time, it made me feel insecure because where was my husband? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's like, I know that he's yours, but where's mine? How about me? And so, like, then getting to watch you guys fall in love. And you guys were the first of our friend group to get married. And I had the pleasure to be a bridesmaid and to, like, be a part of that day. And I was so genuinely happy for you guys and, like, getting to celebrate.
Side note, many pictures of Brittany crying. Here, I'm just kidding.
Sorry, Stheph. Just joking. No, but there was, like, I literally was so excited for you guys the entire time. But God knew that in my heart, it wasn't because I wanted what was yours or what you guys had. I was just sad that I didn't have it too. And a lot of hurt of being like, God,
how about me?
How about me? Like, you don't see me? You don't see that I've been, like, saving myself. I'm doing the work.
Really hard.
And it's like, yet, in comparison to what I see, like, I feel unlovable. I feel forgotten. I feel abandoned. I feel like I don't have my best friend. And so then that caused so much, like, hurt over the years of learning, one, to live in, and I thought it was funny that you said the season, to live the season I was living in and to accept it and to love that season of singleness because it was hard. Because I didn't have an example of what it was to be an older Christian woman
and being
single, like happily
because
single.
Because everybody pushes you to marriage.
Automatically.
Like, oh, you're single? Yes. When are you getting married? When are you having a boyfriend? Like, it's... One more piece of advice. Please don't do that.
Don't do that to the young girls.
That is not cool. I know that maybe if you're a little bit older.
Maybe good intentions.
I know it's okay in your generation to, like, hound and hassle people about boyfriends and getting married and having children, but it's not.
It causes a lot of hurt.
We're at a day and age that it's just not anybody's place, and it's really hurtful.
It does. It causes a lot of hurt. Because then people would be like, oh, you don't want to be you don't want a relationship? Like, look at Steph and Matt. Look at B and Gabe. Yeah. Look at so-and-so and so-and-so, so. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, who do you want me to date?
And you're going to be stirring chaos.
Don't stir chaos. It stirs chaos because then you're just sitting there and you're wondering, like, what's so unlovable
and you're
about me?
In the comments that are made, you're pitting people against each other.
Automatically.
And you don't even notice. Again.
Pinning people against each other because then it's like, am I less of a woman because I'm not in the same season? Mm-hmm. Does God not love me the way he loves someone else because he's blessed them with their husband?
Look what he's doing for them. I've seen what you've done for people.
Why aren't you doing that for me? And that's where a lot of my insecurities stemmed from. Never wanted what anyone else had. Like, everyone else, what was theirs, I was happy they had it. I just wanted mine to come at the same time.
Yes.
I just was like, I wanted to be going on double dates with everyone. Everyone was going on double dates and I was just there like, peace out, like, I guess I'm just gonna go
chilling.
here.
I don't know what to do.
And then there was a moment like that caused a lot of sternness, like in my heart, of being hurt, of watching everyone get married and then me be single. But then there was a moment that, if you didn't know, Stephanie's pregnant. She's having Peanut.
Well, this week we'll know.
Well, she's gonna find out the gender.
You'll know soon.
But there was a moment that when I was, for some reason, I happened to be working from home that day.
Oh my gosh. By the way, your reaction gave me so much joy.
And it was so genuine. Like, I'm sitting on the couch and I'm working on my laptop and my dad gets a phone call and he starts crying. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I literally have my headphones in.
He's a crier, but why are you crying?
He goes, Brittany, look, who's pregnant? And I see Stheph and Matt and I went, ah! Like, legitimately. Sorry, Tiffany's neighbors. The loudest scream I can do in that moment. And it just like was so funny because it was like this joy that came from inside. In that moment, I didn't feel less because I didn't have. I was just joyful. I was just rejoicing with someone who God was, oh my God, God was giving you like a dream and he was accomplishing a dream. And in that moment, I didn't not think about what about me. I was just happy. And that was the moment that I was like, oh my God, there's no hurt there for me anymore. It's not a place where I need to compare myself and it's not poking at the wound. I get to just rejoice with my friend. And it was so amazing because I feel like for a time before we found out we were pregnant, I feel like we were healing our friendship.
Yes.
But I feel like that was like one of the biggest tests for me. That was the confirmation.
Yeah.
Like, we get to actually be friends. Yeah. And I was like, wow, like, this is such a good feeling.
Happy, like you said, like it was, and it was, like you said, trying to understand the season you're living. Because, again, whenever we were 15, 16, the season we were supposed to be living, maybe it was completely out. Or we were going through the same season, and God meant to join us together so we could help each other get through the season. And I just...
Yeah, because we both literally described the same thing.
And I wish I would have understood that because it would have made a lot of my loneliness so much easier to live through.
Yeah, because we used the same language. Easier. I felt unseen. I felt forgotten, unheard, abandoned.
Yes.
We were both feeling that.
Yes. And like you said, it's really funny because, again, going back to, like you said, your moment that you realized that, like, oh, I'm good, I'm healed. It was, again, similar, same situation in different fonts. And
it happened within, honestly, like a month of each other.
Yes, and
it happened within a month of each other.
It was the same exact thing. And again, the moment that I had that whole realization was also that same day, the pastor, again, not many people know, but like we have intensely been praying for Peanut, intensely, and you know when you're like, God has a promise, and same thing with ministry. I know that because you've always known, and I have always known. PJ, you didn't always know. You always doubted it. But we have always known your calling. We have always known, even though people try to push you back into children's ministry, I know you love that with all your heart, but we have always all known your calling and have known your ministry.
It just wasn't the right time.
It just wasn't the right time. And so I was like, okay, God, like, I know you called me for this, but I know that I'm content in my season, but I know you're calling me to a new season. Where you at? And I knew that the season was to extend our family. And it was really frustrating because you know God's promises. And you know that God is not a man to lie. And so you know that...
Or change his mind.
So you know that if he promised you, Brittany, this is what I have for you, it's going to come. And you're just like, but when? Like, where are you? What is it? And so it was that. And it was like, all right. And then seeing you, I felt, like I said, I felt fulfilled. And I was like, yay. And I was like, okay, new season. Very cool. And I was like, okay, like
And then we got confirmation with the Soul Sisters.
Yes, we got,
the Soul
that's
Sisters.
Something else. I'll tell you that. We'll talk about that in just a minute. And had seen Britt, again, we had a youth conference at our church. At this point, our pastor, you guys had actually invited us to youth already for a very long time, because a lot of our fight stemmed from us being in youth and together all the time. So I always resented going back to church in youth because I didn't want to relive that. And then God blew into my heart, you gotta go. You just gotta go, and you just gotta sit there and bask in my presence and just enjoy. And again, went and had life change. A lot of people will say that the conference was absolutely life-changing. And it was, even though I am not a young girl anymore, I'm only a day over 21.
Just a smidge.
It was life-changing for me, even as a older youth. And again, seeing you and just in that season, and I saw healing coming to a lot of. There was, I don't know if it was a Saturday, but I saw healing happening between you, between Jeremy, between
all of us,
between all of you guys, just healing in the household. And I was just overcome with that. And then I was like, just there, and I was just sitting in the silence, and I was like, God, like, I know there's a new season, like, where is it at? And then we had, you invited a guest to come preach.
Guest speaker.
And again, like, it's different when you know, but it's different when someone that doesn't know you confirms something for you. And me and Matt were just praying with him, and then her husband came over, and he was not the first nor the last, but he gave a very intense prophecy about kingdom, about Matt's like ministry. He gave an intense.
It's gonna be linked down below. You better check out. You better check it out.
Dropper.
The Kingdom. Check it out.
He gave a very big confirmation on Kingdom, and then I was like, okay, like, last but not least, and he talked about our ministry, and then he's like, I don't know, y'all praying for something? Y'all praying for a baby? God says it's gonna happen. Like, it's like real, like, and he was just like really
so specific.
He was like, really soon. Like, I don't know what you're worried about. What do you like? And just like talking to me, and I was like unconsolable because again, I was like, happy in my season, but I was ready to go on to my next
new
one.
Season, yeah.
And it was so frustrating. Again, like you said, not because I saw what was going on, but I was like, oh, so great. You had moved on. You had finally shifted, and it was your time. And I was like, I don't want that. I want
what God wants.
I want to I want to please Him, but I
want what God has for me.
Yeah, like because I was so happy watching like it just even everybody. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's a new season. Like I'm so happy to see that. I was like, okay, I'm okay being a part of it from here, but I know that there's something else coming.
Yeah.
And so I think confirmation, even because like you said, it happened at the same time. Nobody had any idea because it was the same month.
God was just working.
It was the same month because I think you had received a full circle confirmation that that's where you were supposed to be.
Yeah.
And little did I know, I received the full confirmation of my season that I was praying for. So we both at the same time received
we're literally
the confirmation.
Again
we're living
similar situation.
We're living a similar situation, different ways. Different seasons, but same way.
Yeah, it's like God working.
Yeah.
It's like ready for a new season. And knowing that in order to do that, you have to release it.
You had to release it, and you got to be happy with the season you're living in.
Yeah.
It's not always going to be fine and dandy.
Yeah.
But be content where you're at because God is ready. He's ready. He's just waiting for you to just, okay, are you good now? Like, are you done with your drama? Are you done with your crying?
Are you done with your babiness?
Are you done being a baby?
Come
because
on.
I'm ready to take you somewhere else. And again, I think that was also a full circle moment where it was like the cycle was broken. There was a dry season, but now here we go. Here's the rain. Here's the spring. Here's the springtime.
Time to shift.
You had a springtime, and I had a springtime right after you. And I was like, now that the rain is done, you're gonna see the flowers bloom.
So to go back in time a little bit, back in time when I think I was 19, you were 20, about there.
I think that sounds good.
It's about right. We got asked to work together doing a Bible study.
Again, no matter what, we were trying to. No matter what, we always got that's something else.
Always got put to work together.
Whoever God needs to use to sharpen you, it might not be your favorite person in the world at the time, but it's always the right person. I'm just saying.
And he's gonna keep
putting
y'all in the fire together.
He's gonna throw you. He gonna be in there too. You're not gonna get burned.
Yeah, no, I know. He was protecting both of us because he loved us both equally.
Yes, but
it was funny.
Was because it was always like Brittany and Sthephany are so seasoned. They're gonna work really well together. So it was always me and you and
I remember
until today.
Okay. But I remember like they were like, oh yeah, we're gonna do a Bible study. You and Stheph are the oldest of the groups, basically. You guys are going to work together.
Y'all are going to be good. And this was
Bible study.
Was this also a boys and girls thing?
Yeah. The boys had their group and the girls had their group.
So again, we had
with women's ministry.
Again, that's something else that I think both of us also flee. Like we got fire in our butts. We don't want to be a part of. We're not running away from that one, I guess, this time. We love it though.
But no, it was hard because it's like, how do we be an example of something that we still don't know how to do?
Yeah, hard.
So then they're like, okay, so you're going to do the Bible study.
You guys... When we talk about being friends, you guys are going to have to be friends.
You're going to teach it.
You're going to teach how to be friends. To girls that are much younger than you guys and going through all of it right now. Mm-hmm. Going through the ringer.
And there was a moment where we were praying and there was a phrase that was said. I don't know what it was. Like, we were praying and out of nowhere it was Soul Sisters. And that just became...
I remember we were talking about something very similar, which is funny, which was about your identity in Christ and talking about we were younger.
Oh my God,
it was, oh my gosh, whoa, I got chills. It was, full circle. We were talking about our identity in Christ and the truth about, it wasn't about being women because we were younger. So it was the truth.
Yeah.
Whoa, I remember. It was the truth about being God's girl.
Yeah.
The truth about being God's girl. And that's what we were talking about, how the truth, like who we are in Christ as girls.
And basically not to compete with one another.
And this was, again, the long two lines. And Soul Sisters came out of this. Yeah. We had the name Soul Sisters. And I think we spoke to your parents, or you spoke to your parents about it. We had mentioned it to them, right?
Yeah, and then it just became our thing. Like, there's literally photos that we posted of us all holding hands and constantly Soul Sisters.
Everything was
started as a joke.
Anything with the girls together was Soul Sisters. Hey,
Soul Sister. And we just started calling each other that.
Like,
it just started you're my soul sister, because it was deeper than just being a friend.
It's not, because
it's connected by your souls.
And I think even when we were in this season of animosity, we always knew that even though we couldn't find it in ourselves to be friends, we knew that our souls were connected.
We're connected, and we knew that ultimately God was our Father that made us sisters in Christ. And you might not always agree with your sister. You might not always like what your sister does, you know. But that's your sister.
The girl that's making you angry in the morning at practice, she's the one you need the most.
She is, because she's going to sharpen you.
The person that you look
at
when they come into the door, you're like, oh, I can't stand them. That is the person that you need. That's the person that's going to help you grow your ministry. That's the person that's going to help you grow.
And they're going to help you enter into maturity.
They're gonna push you to go into the season that you need to be at.
And then the soul sister stuck. And I remember I spoke to my father one day and I mentioned the name.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, the youth girls. The youth girls? We just keep calling yourselves soul sisters. And he's like, oh, what does that mean? And I translated it. I'm like, Imã das Almas. And he's like, whoa, like that's really strong.
Deep, right? That's deep.
Because we're like 19, 20.
We were babies.
And he's like, that's really strong. Like, that's such a strong word. And I was like, yeah. And then there was an idea that we wanted to do a book club. We wanted to do a book club so bad, but for whatever reason, não encaixou no momento.
It just wasn't working.
Wasn't the right time.
It was not the right time.
And it was hard. I was upset. You were upset. Yeah. The girls all had the books, but it just didn't happen. It didn't work out. So then COVID hit, and I remember that this thought never left my brain, and I was like, God, like, I really wish that could have happened. And there was a moment at the beginning of, like, after COVID where I was like, God, like, I want godly friendships. Like, I miss having friends that I could rely on and talk to, because it really separated us for a while.
One thing I'll say, too, is, like, yeah, like, having friendships is not the easiest thing in the world. Mm-hmm. Having godly friendships isn't the easiest thing. Yeah. But, like, and it's also, like, you know, God, there's people in the church that it's an easy friendship because you've known everybody forever.
Yeah, you're just there.
It's so easy to create friendships in church, and it's, like, it's just hard to, like, get that all in.
Yeah, it's hard to not leave it only at the surface level.
Yes, of course.
And to take it deeper. And it's just like, oh, we see each other every week. We're friends. But I was longing, like, for friends.
For friends.
For someone that I can call and talk and share and cry and be like, dude, I'm going through this thing. Like, I need someone to fast with me, to pray with me. And then this idea of the Soul Sisters was there. But then I was like, oh, I guess it's just not the right time, whatever. Fast forward to 2023.
Like 2 months ago.
2 months ago, as soon as we're both going through our individual healing, not really like telling each other, but we're going through our own healing.
Yeah, and again, at this point, we were totally cool. Like nothing was happening.
Good.
Everything was totally good. We had idea arise for us to just have a book club in church, a women's book club, and everything was chill.
And it was random.
Again, Brittany and Sthephany, you guys are going to work together.
Yep.
Always Brittany and Sthephany, because Brittany and Sthephany work really well together.
Mm-hmm. They get results.
They could do their thing. And everything was chill. And I was like, okay, no problem.
Yeah, I love the idea.
I love the idea. Again, at a very, very healed point and just excited.
And it really was like such a God moment. Because as soon as I heard what the idea was, because at first it was just presented to me as small groups.
As small groups. That's what I saw.
That's what it was presented to me. And then we get pulled into the office, all these women.
But before, I think I told you before, I think you also found out before.
I found out a little bit before.
Yeah, my mom had this, I think it was the night before. She was like, oh, so actually it's going to be a book club. And and the name for it is going to be Soul Sisters.
Yep.
And I was like, hey, can you say that again? And she's like, oh, the name is Soul Sisters. And I'm like, and then I was cracking up. I'm like, do you remember like 5 years ago? And she was like, yeah, PJ said the same thing. And I was like, that means Brittany already knows.
Yeah.
And we hadn't spoken about it until that meeting.
Yeah, because it was the moment that my dad told me he called me.
We didn't even have a time to have a conversation.
No, because it was literally
it was
the same week.
It was so quick.
My dad pulls me aside and he says the book club. And I was like, okay. Then he says the name. And I was like, and he goes,
now you're just playing.
I literally looked at him like, and he laughs and he goes, yeah. He goes, that in the meeting that he was having with your mom, that they were talking like, oh, but what do we name it? And he said that the Holy Spirit reminded him in that moment of what we spoke about how like we were having this great moment of Soul Sisters and the meaning, and that when he presented it, like oh, the girls had this idea that your mom instantly was like, yeah, like let's do it.
I'm done.
And then we were in the meeting where it was informal, like we all went into the office and I was just sitting there like looking at Sthephanie's looking at me. He says it and me and her start laughing.
And I just looked at her and I was just like,
that's God.
I think that was the ultimate confirmation of this is a new season. Your cycles are broken.
Yep.
You're done.
You're entering. Time to elevate.
The cycles are done.
Time to elevate.
You did it after 6 long years. Your cycle
Happy
has
graduation.
Been broken.
Here's your diploma. You are now.
You're done. Like this is it. This is it for you guys. This is
the time of the bottle is over.
Yes.
Time for solid food.
Yes.
You guys are graduating in maturity. And it's something that like, of course, like, you still have like those areas and you're like, no, I see where the enemy's trying to work.
Still got things to work on, and
I'm not letting it flourish.
Exactly.
You can now, like, I feel like I can now identify it and I'm like, I'm not letting that flourish.
Yes.
In my heart, you can in my mind.
Like that, that's no good. I'm going to cough too because I was holding that.
I was holding this.
You're good. You're doing great. You're doing great.
Let me get a sip.
Drink some water. I'm so sorry.
You're good. You're like, I'm not going to let that flourish in my heart. Like, I see what you're doing. These are the same old tactics.
No. And I think you said that. I think now that we are healed over and we went through the journey, now it's easier to be like, oh, red flag right there. I noticed that. What's going on?
My old nature.
Bring it back. And even during our first Soul Sisters meeting, I was like, I had. It's been a long time since we've done anything like that.
Like that type of
together, like
close quarters,
like working. Yeah, and I was like, I was praying. I was really nervous about how everything was
going
to go. I was so anxious. Like you guys showed up at the house, and I was like, oh my gosh. I prayed. I was like, God, please, like, don't let me and Brittany embarrass ourselves. Like, I'm so scared. I'm a little baby.
I was like, God,
I'm a baby.
No, literally, I was like, God, please, like, allow this to be a blessing.
Yes.
And not allow old natures creep up, because you're obviously elevating us to a position now where it's a different season, and we have people that can learn from this experience, but we need to be healed.
Yes.
We need to be, because we can't, what's it called? I guess, in a way, teach what's not already learned.
Yes, absolutely.
And so it was good now. And then we were even talking about what Bible story can we incorporate?
What can we bring into this?
Where in the Bible did we see holy competition? And we saw...
It was there, girl.
It was there. It was there, I'm sure, in multiple... I don't know who's
watching.
I'm sure it was there in multiple stories.
Yes.
But the one that stood out to us was David and Saul. Both had callings.
Yes.
Differently.
Yes. Way different. If you think about it, way different.
And we're not even talking about like who was a good king, who was a bad king. They were both king.
They were living 2 different seasons.
Yep. And God established, and we were even saying, like, there are 2 ways you can react during holy competition.
Yes.
You could either react like Saul, which is your immature, weak,
Little baby.
Baby boy.
Little baby.
Or you can react like David and trust that God has what's yours at the right time.
Which I prayed that I could have been a little bit more like David, but I don't think neither of us were a little bit like David. But now you have an example. Don't be like us. Be like David. Be like us now. Don't be like us back then.
Yeah, because I think it's like we are human.
Yes.
Ultimately.
It's human nature.
And humans make mistakes. And luckily, we're not in a time where God had to treat like Saul. And
yes.
Thank God.
Thank
because
God
he would have had every reason to give up on us. He would have had every reason not to use us and to leave us in that state. But he is merciful and graceful, and he can do it for you. You can have a heart like Saul right now, but God can transform it into a heart like David.
Yes.
Where you understand that, hey, it's not my time. I'm content in my season serving the King, working for his kingdom.
I'm cool with that.
I'm cool.
And
when it's my turn, it's going to happen.
It's okay to be a supporting
role. Yeah.
It's okay. Like, again, I'm so ecstatic being a supporting role. And, like, again, if you talked to me a few years ago, I would be so mad to be a supporting character in a ministry that I know or like, but I'm so cool with that. I love being supporting characters because I know that it's going to... You need stairs to get up, you know? Like, you need to... How are you going to climb without stairs? Or you're going to struggle. So I'm okay to be the stair for somebody to step on me, for someone to get to where they need to get. As long as God's kingdom. As long as it's God... The whole point is that we're here to expand God's kingdom.
Yeah. And I think I really got to, like, have a moment where I got to play the supporting role recently, and it was amazing. Like, it literally was so... I even told Tiffany, like, it was such a blessing for me because not always... do I get the opportunity to step out of my comfort zone. And if there's an area I'm not comfortable with, it's cameras, it's taking pictures, it's media. And our creative team at church just started going strong, and Sthephany is a part of that with Tiffany and Matt and Jeremy and Pastor Isaias, and they're really working together as the front of this ministry. And I remember watching this, and I was so overjoyed. And I was like, God, this is amazing. I got to see your guys' talents. I got to see how God was raising you guys up and is still raising you up. And I was like, God, if I could please be a part of it too, I would like that.
like if I could please. And that's how I felt. That's how I felt with youth. I was like, I just want a little bit. Like, I just want to. It's not even like I don't want the attention. I just want to be a part of it. I want to bask in it. I want to be able to enjoy it. And it's just being there. And I was like, God,
and it's such a different feeling.
And it was like, if you can just open like the teensiest little crack, I will walk through it.
Yeah.
And it's just being there and being able to have fun. I know I look young, but I'm not young, and they treat me like I'm young. They think I'm so young.
They're always like, you look like you're 20. I'm
20.
like, stop.
They love on me, and I'm just like, oh my God, like that's just, it's healing my youth. But like, that's all I wanted. I just wanted a little taste. I just wanted, again, I didn't want to be doing anything. I just wanted to be there.
And it's nice.
Just enjoy it.
And I felt like I really got the opportunity recently where I got to work with it. And God started opening a door, like an avenue for me to get to work with you guys. And under your guys' leadership in this area. And I was like, oh, thank you. But thank you. Because I was like, I love the fact that now I get to step out of my comfort zone as a supporting role.
And to do something you're good at. Something she's good at. And that she hides from the world. You see, this is people that are healed. This is healing. This is healed. This is people that can point out you're good at this and you're a loser for not doing it the whole entire time. She's really good. She's great. You need to hear this girl. Anyways, so like stepping out into a place where you again. Everybody belongs. And,
that's what it is. It's realizing that everyone has a place
in the
kingdom.
The table. It's the kingdom. It's the kingdom.
You're allowed to come.
We're all called to expand it. Yeah. When Jesus died, he talked to his disciples and he says, what did he tell them? Go and make disciples. That's my job for you. I'm going to go. I'll be back for you later, but I'm going to go. I'm going to die. Your job is to go ahead and make disciples. Yeah. Of everybody. Everybody you see, you make them a disciple.
Make them a part of it.
It's not between the 12. Now the whole world is a disciple. So everybody has a seat at the table. Everybody gets to join in on the feast. Everybody gets to feast.
It's like, listen, there's enough food and there's enough blessings and there's enough room where you get to speak at the table.
Yes,
and it's amazing.
And like you said, goes back to like all our theme. There's space for everybody at the table, and the amount of stars in the sky are they're unlimited. There's no, you can't count them. So
why do we think that we can limit what God can do?
Exactly.
We can't.
If we know that He's the God of the impossible, why do we put limitations to His?
Exactly.
To His,
and I don't know if you guys can tell, Sthephany also has a calling when it comes to word. Obviously, that one. No, you do. Shy. She does. Sthephany has a calling when it comes to the word as well. She's a great teacher. She's a great speaker. You're not calling
me out.
I am calling you out.
I rebuke you.
I am calling you out because you also have that calling. And I know that maybe it's not active at this season. But girl, once it's active, once it's active, it's going to be full force. Like I'm already dreaming because we've talked a little bit of where you guys dream. I'm excited for that chapter. And I know you guys are laying the groundwork now. And God is opening the season for you guys to expand your family. And that's the season that He's calling you for. But guys, follow Kingdom. Because when that moment happens, you're going to want to be a part of that movement. Because it's something beautiful. There's space in the Kingdom for everybody. There's space for you to use your calling and to uplift other people to use their calling. Because all we can do is keep going. There's things that Sthephany went through that I haven't gone through. There's things I've gone through that Sthephany hasn't gone through. And if we silence each other, we're preventing healing from someone else.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's the same thing with you. You need to be careful when you're trying to silence someone else just because you don't like the way they speak, the way that they look at you. You're silencing what God is trying to do. And God does not take that lightly.
Yes.
He does not take it lightly. Forgive what needs to be forgiven. Confront the situation. If you can't confront one-on-one, get someone to be a mediator.
And don't be stubborn. So we always talk about how there's two different paths. They each have an end. Could be exactly the same, but the way you get there could be completely different. You can walk straight there, have really no difficulties, or you can have lots of broken bridges, lots of detours, lots of all that stuff. So that's really up to you. You can build a bridge or you can break it down.
Yeah.
And the healing that we went through built many bridges. For now, we're good for now. We're good for quite a few
in the name
kilometers.
Of Jesus. And in the name of Jesus. And I can't wait to see how God allows us to not be stuck in that season of competition and to just move into being sanctified and worked on.
Yes.
Because that's what it is. Everything you go through, that mess you're going through right now, that person that is giving you a hard time,
yes, ma'am.
Release that forgiveness.
Yes.
Release it. Because God's going to take that mess and make it a message. He did it with us. And He's going to do it with you. This situation was a mess and a half. You can ask anyone in her life. It was a mess.
Hot mess.
But now it's a message.
Chaotic.
Now it's a message.
Absolutely.
That we can tell you, you don't have to be in competition. What God has for you is for you,
it's yours.
Specifically.
And you're uniquely. And again,
you are the girl for that job.
That's you. You're the girl.
And whatever God does, and you can still inspire others and love on others and work with others without it taking away with what God has for you.
Yeah.
Stop living in holy competition because that is not what God calls for you. He calls you to be a kingdom woman, to build a kingdom with the people around you, to honor God and stay in His purpose and His plan because you were created in that image.
Yes.
Just like that person next to you.
Yes.
You were created. And remember, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Hope you have a good night.
Thank you for joining.
Oh, thank you for joining us. Oh, you're welcome. He's like, thank you for joining us. Have a really good night, guys. Bye.
Girl, that was so nice.
I needed it.
Because after we had our conversation, every day that passed, I had a little bit more understanding of everything, and I was like, wow.
I love you so much.
I love you too.
That was so good.
That was so good. That was so good. Like I feel extra like I'm good.
Relieved.
I feel extra like I said, even though I was good, I feel extra good.